People knew Kanye was outspoken, but no one was ready for what he was about to say. The cameras rolled, the studio lights cast a clean glow over the set, and the audience settled in, expecting the usual unpredictable Kanye moments. Maybe a passionate rant about creativity, culture, or the future of fashion. But something was different. His posture, the way he leaned forward, the way his fingers tapped lightly on the arm of his chair. There was an intensity in the air that even the host seemed to notice. Dressed in an oversized hoodie, shades covering his eyes, Kanye sat back for a moment, exhaling slowly. The host smiled, waiting for the first playful remark, expecting something about the industry, maybe a self-proclaimed title or a comparison to a historical icon. Instead, Kanye adjusted his sleeves, his tone low but steady. "They don't want you to know the truth," he said, voice calm but carrying weight. The host's smile faltered just slightly, unsure if this was another abstract thought or something deeper. Kanye didn't pause. "I've sat in those rooms. I've had those conversations. They control everything. The labels, the movies, the news, all of it." A quiet shift in the room. The energy changed. The audience, once relaxed, leaned in. The host cleared his throat, shifting slightly in his chair, but Kanye wasn't looking at him anymore. His focus was elsewhere, as if speaking beyond the room itself. "This isn't about music. It's not about brands. It's bigger than that. They build you up, they break you down, and when you stop playing by the rules, they make sure you disappear." The host gave a nervous chuckle, attempting to bring some levity back into the moment, but it didn't land. Kanye wasn't joking. This industry doesn't reward talent, it rewards control, and if you step outside the lines, they turn you into a headline. They make sure people stop listening. The air in the studio felt heavier. The cameras captured every second, every flicker of unease from the host, every unwavering moment of Kanye's stare. Within minutes, the first clips hit the internet. And just like that, everything changed. Kanye adjusted his sleeves again, settling deeper into his chair. His voice didn't rise. He wasn't ranting, wasn't playing into the character people expected. He was controlled, deliberate, choosing his words carefully. "This industry isn't what you think it is," he said, his tone steady, almost too calm. "It's not about talent. It's not about hard work. It's about who owns you." The host forced a smile, shifting slightly in his seat. "Well, Kanye, you've had massive success in music, in fashion, in business. I mean, clearly you—" Kanye held up a hand. Not aggressively, not rudely, just firm. "Let me finish." The host hesitated, then nodded. Kanye pressed on. "They tell you it's about the work. They tell you if you grind hard enough, if you sacrifice enough, if you give everything you have, you'll make it." He shook his head. "That's a lie." The audience stayed silent. No nervous laughter, no shifting in their seats. They were locked in. "I've been in those meetings," Kanye continued. "The real meetings. The ones where decisions get made. Who wins? Who loses? Who gets to keep their platform? Who gets erased?" The host cleared his throat. "When you say they, who exactly are you talking about?" Kanye leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees. His voice never wavered. "The executives. The billionaires you don't see. The ones who own the networks, the magazines, the streaming platforms, the designers, the social media companies. You think artists run the industry? You think actors choose their careers? They don't." The host let out a small chuckle, but it wasn't convincing. "Come on, man. People love your music. They love your shoes. You built something huge. No one can take that from you." Kanye tilted his head slightly. "Can't they?" A pause. "They control everything," he said. "And when you stop playing by the rules, they make sure you're out. You don't get to just walk away. You don't get to just speak your mind. They either buy you or they bury you." The host was silent now. His hands clasped together on the desk, his smile gone. Kanye sat back again, letting his words settle. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't emotional. That's what made it even more unsettling. "You ever wonder why certain people get canceled overnight?" he asked. "Why stories pop up at the perfect time, right when someone speaks out? Why the biggest artists, actors, and influencers stay quiet even when they know the truth?" The host opened his mouth, then closed it. He had nothing. Kanye nodded slowly. "That's what control looks like." The audience wasn't sure if they should be intrigued or shocked, but one thing was certain. They couldn't look away. Kanye exhaled slowly, adjusting his posture. The weight of his words was already thick in the air, but he wasn't done. He had only just begun. You ever notice how the biggest artists in the world don't own their own music? His voice was calm, steady, but every syllable landed like a hammer. They write it, they perform it, they sell out arenas for it, and yet at the end of the day, it belongs to the label. The host blinked, his fingers lightly tapping on the desk. The shift in his demeanor was subtle, but it was there. The realization that this interview was no longer just entertainment. Kanye leaned forward again. Prince fought for decades to own his masters. Michael, too. You think those were just business disputes? You think it's a coincidence that the second they started speaking out, things got real complicated for them? He let the words settle, scanning the room. No one interrupted. He didn't stop. I signed my first deal when I was hungry, desperate to make it. I was young. I trusted them. And they wrote that contract in a way that kept me locked in, kept me dependent on them. You ever wonder why artists who've made hundreds of millions of dollars end up broke? It ain't because they don't know how to spend. It's because they never had control in the first place. The host's expression tightened. This was going to make headlines. Kanye tapped the table lightly with his fingers. They don't just take your music. They take your image. They take your name. You build a brand, and then they tell you how you can and can't use it. You make something from nothing, and suddenly you're renting yourself back from the people who never created anything. The audience sat frozen, eyes locked on him, hanging on to every word. They dangle freedom in front of you like a prize, but it's never real. Not even for the billionaires. The biggest names in entertainment, the faces you see everywhere, even they have to play by the rules. They don't get to say what they want, support what they want, move how they want. They got the money, but not the power. The host swallowed, shifting slightly in his chair. Kanye, I mean, these are some strong accusations. You really think... Kanye didn't flinch. I don't think. I know. The host's hand curled into a fist for just a second, a reflex he probably didn't even realize. The cameras were rolling. Every second was being captured, and Kanye, he wasn't hesitating. You ever see a billionaire look nervous when they talk about certain things? You ever notice how they dodge questions, avoid topics, stay quiet when something real is going on? He sat back again, folding his arms. That's not success. That's a leash. The silence in the studio stretched. The host's smile was gone now, replaced with something else. Kanye had just ripped the mask off an industry that never wanted to be exposed, and the world was about to hear every word. Kanye sat back in his chair, fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. He had been holding on to these truths for years, and now that the floodgates were open, there was no stopping them. He wasn't raising his voice. He wasn't trying to convince anyone. He was just saying what he knew. They decide who wins, he said, his voice smooth but firm. They decide who loses. They decide who gets a second chance and who never works again. The host took a slow breath, hands clasped together on the desk. There was no more forced humor, no playful deflections. The conversation had left the realm of entertainment. Kanye didn't blink. The media isn't just reporting news. They make the news. They tell people who to love and who to hate. They take a story, spin it just enough, repeat it over and over, and suddenly, that's the truth. He paused. Doesn't matter what's real. What matters is what they say is real. The audience barely moved. The usual rhythm of a talk show interview, the laughter, the back-and-forth banter, was gone. The studio was silent except for Kanye's voice. He leaned forward slightly, resting his arms on his knees. You ever wonder why some celebrities can do the worst things imaginable, and the media will still protect them? Why they never get canceled, no matter what they do? He shook his head. And then you got other people. People who speak out, people who say the wrong thing one time, and suddenly their whole career is over. The host swallowed. His eyes darted to the producer off camera, but no one was going to stop this. Kanye exhaled through his nose. When you go against the system, they don't argue with you. They don't debate you. They don't even prove you wrong. He tapped his temple. They make you look crazy. A hush settled over the room. The weight of those words sat heavy in the air. That's how they do it, he continued, his voice dropping just slightly. They don't have to ruin you. They just have to make people think you're already ruined. They start calling you unhinged. They say you're losing it. They start showing old clips out of context, bringing up mistakes from 10, 20 years ago. He shook his head. They rewrite your whole life in real time, and once people believe it, it's over. The host's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Kanye nodded. I know this because I watched it happen to me. The shift was immediate. This wasn't just a conversation anymore. It was a confession. You think I don't notice? Kanye's tone was sharper now. One minute, I was a genius, a billionaire, a cultural icon. The next, I was off my meds. I was spiraling. His jaw tightened. You think that just happened? The audience was silent. No one dared move. They decide when you're okay and when you're a problem. They decide when you're a visionary and when you're a threat. And if you stop playing by the rules, if you stop being useful to them, he spread his hands. They flip the switch, and suddenly, the whole world looks at you different. The host licked his lips, shifting slightly in his chair. His usual control over the conversation was gone. I said something they didn't like, Kanye continued, and the next morning, every headline was about how I needed help, about how I was losing my mind. He let out a small chuckle, but there was no humor in it. That wasn't random. That wasn't an accident. That was the machine doing what it does. The host exhaled through his nose, trying to find a way to respond. But Kanye, don't you think... Kanye lifted a hand, not rudely, just a simple gesture that said, "Let me finish." "I'm not the only one," he said. "This has happened before. It'll happen again. Every time someone in this business wakes up, every time they try to pull back the curtain, they get hit with the same playbook." He pointed at the cameras. "Make them look crazy, make them look dangerous, make them look like a joke." The room was still. The host sat frozen, lips pressed together, fingers tapping against the desk. The producers in the control room were likely scrambling, wondering if they should cut to commercial. But it was too late for that. The internet was already on fire. Clips from the interview were spreading within minutes. Tweets were rolling in. "Kanye just exposed the entire industry. They are not going to be happy about this. This might be the most important interview in years." TikTok edits were already being made. YouTube thumbnails were being created with Kanye's face frozen mid-sentence, red arrows pointing at the host's reaction. And Kanye, he wasn't finished yet. The internet didn't just react, it erupted. Within minutes, Twitter was a war zone. Some called Kanye a genius, a whistleblower finally exposing the truth. Others dismissed him as unhinged, insisting he was just ranting again. But no one was ignoring it. Instagram pages flooded with clips from the interview. Some posts dissected every line, every pause, every subtle shift in Kanye's tone. Others zoomed in on the host's nervous expressions, pointing out the exact moment they realized the conversation had spiraled beyond their control. YouTube exploded with reaction videos. Channels that normally broke down celebrity gossip were suddenly analyzing media manipulation and industry control. Some titled their videos like "Breaking News." "Kanye just said what no one else will. Is he telling the truth or losing it? They're going to try to erase this interview." TikTok followed suit. Clips spread like wildfire, stitched together with captions like, "Pay attention to what he's saying," and "They'll call him crazy for this." Some users slowed down Kanye's words, layering eerie music underneath, making it feel less like an interview and more like a warning. Others used old footage of past celebrities, Prince, Michael Jackson, Dave Chappelle, speaking on similar issues, suggesting a deeper pattern at play. Memes surfaced almost immediately. Some mocked Kanye, using screenshots of the host's awkward reaction with captions like, "When you realize your guest just ruined your career." Others painted him as a hero, side by side with historical figures who were ignored when they first spoke out. Meanwhile, the host, now realizing the scale of what was happening, moved into damage control. Their social media team scrambled to reframe the situation. A carefully worded tweet appeared on their official page. "Kanye West is known for his bold opinions, and we appreciate an open dialogue. The views expressed in our interview are his own." It was a subtle attempt to distance themselves, acknowledge the controversy without taking responsibility for it, but the comments weren't buying it. "Oh, now you want to backpedal? You knew exactly what you were doing when you let him speak." They're already trying to make it seem like he's just being Kanye, instead of actually listening. Industry figures started weighing in. Some celebrities voiced support, saying Kanye was speaking on things that many artists had whispered about behind closed doors. Others dismissed him outright, calling his statements reckless, dangerous, irresponsible. A few suggested the interview should be taken down altogether. Talk show analysts and media insiders started crafting their own narratives. Some framed it as another Kanye controversy, just another viral moment that would fade in a few days. Others recognized that this wasn't like the past ones. This time, the conversation wasn't stopping. And behind it all, The question wasn't just what Kanye had said, it was how the industry was about to respond. The aftermath was chaos. Every major news outlet picked up the story, each spinning it in a different direction. Some framed the interview as a meltdown, another moment of Kanye going off the rails. Others took a different approach, analyzing his words, questioning if he had just blown the lid off Hollywood's deepest secrets. Talk shows dissected it line by line. Pundits debated whether he was exposing corruption or just creating controversy. Headlines clashed against each other. Kanye West's shocking rant: has he finally gone too far? Kanye speaks on industry control. Is he right? What Kanye said on live TV that no one expected. Clips of the interview continued circulating, breaking records on social media. Some fans called it the most important celebrity interview in years. Others dismissed it, saying he was just trying to stay relevant. Meanwhile, industry insiders grew quiet. Executives, producers, and media figures, people who normally had something to say about every celebrity controversy, avoided the topic altogether. No denials, no statements, just silence. And then days later, Kanye responded. No interviews, no press conferences, no explanations, just a single post. A black screen, white text, simple, direct. I said what needed to be said. The truth will always come out. The internet ignited again. Fans flooded the comments, rallying behind him. We hear you. They can't stop the truth. You knew the risks and still spoke out. Respect. Critics doubled down, calling him reckless, irresponsible, dangerous. The debate raged on. But one thing was clear. The industry would never be the same after this interview. Fade to black, the legend grows.